All right, morning, everyone. Uh, First thing I wanted to mention is meeting invite for this academic year for this meeting. You can pick up the meeting invite on the consortium website on the meetings page. I will paste this link in the chat. So you can grab the link in chat or just navigate. The current meeting invite is the second item on the meetings page, and if you just download that and open it, you can add it to your Outlook calendar. And there's 100 people on that invite now, so there's no way I can manage individual invites for a meeting like that. So it's just a calendar invite that you can add to a calendar event you can add to your calendar, and this one goes through the one that if you haven't updated it in the last, if you haven't grabbed this in the last week or so, the one in your calendar is probably the one that goes through September 30th. So next week's meeting is the last meeting on that invite, and it's the same meeting link, so nothing is really changing. It's just I extended the invite through the end of this fiscal year. So if again, if you open that meeting invite, add it to your Outlook calendar, you'll have calendar events on Tuesdays and Thursdays through the end of June. And yeah, you can, Amy says, I just added in only double the old meetings. I'm just going to double check here real quick. No, you're right. Let's see. I think I probably made an error in whatchamacallit in Canvas. Hang on just a sec. Run it through. Let's see. Sorry, I'm taking care of this right now. Come on. Okay, so. All right. Let me see if this. I don't get it.
Okay, so my old invite that I had now just says Primo Tuesday, Thursday, like it's your edited version now, like it automatically updated in my calendar.
Yeah, I can't explain it.
Except only, oh, no, only through today. Sorry, it's doing weird things.
I must not know something about uploading files to LibGuide, so I'll have to work on that. I'll have to go in and.
Sometimes when you upload a file to LibGuides with the same exact name, it doesn't update it. So just give it a slightly different name. I've found that sometimes to be helpful.
Yeah, here they are. And I wonder. Yeah, sorry, I don't know. I'll have to futz with that later. So I took the invite out. I'll put the new invite there once I make sure I upload the right one. Anyways, all right. Well, that was a big fail. The next thing I was thought we could talk about is the conversation about the offensive language subject headings, which came up on the email list, and the something we talked about back in the spring. So some of you may remember this. The ongoing melodrama about the official authorized subject headings from Library of Congress around certain subject areas, namely undocumented immigrants, the so-called change the subject conversation around official but non-preferred subject headings in Library of Congress authorities. And there's a lot of community involvement, library community involvement in what should be done about that. Legislation has been pushed that didn't get passed. So I just pasted a link to the page I'm on. This is one good page for comprehensive kind of background and context on this issue. That represents a lot more than I know about this topic anyways. But it's pretty complete regarding the history and what the issue is and why people care about it and who's doing what. In practical terms, the libraries that want to address this in Primo have an option through the display normalization rules for Primo VE that will allow you to kind of do a change all in Primo VE on the fly. So when a subject heading that is non-preferred appears in a record in Alma, the displayed subject heading in Primo will appear with the alternate text that you've included in your normalization rules. So, and this is from, I should have mentioned, this is from State University of New York Library Consortium. They've done a lot of work around this, and they have pretty complete documentation on the subject headings that they are replacing with alternate subject headings. Some additional information. One of the big things to be aware of with this topic is that the Primo display rules only affect the appearance in records. It doesn't change the underlying content in the MARC records, and it doesn't change the ability to the display text that they use. The alternate text is not in and of itself searchable. The stuff that you're searching is the record coming from Alma, not what gets displayed about the record. And that's what display normalization basically refers to, taking what's in the MARC record and just managing the display of that information. And the other big thing that is more impactful, I think, is that the normalization rules for Primo VE only affect or work on records coming from your Alma instance. They don't, CDI citations are not normalized. So to the extent that you are displaying CDI content, those, if illegal immigrants is a subject heading in a CDI record, that's what's going to display regardless of your display rules. And that's just the nature of how Primo works. Just to give I can do a quick demo of this, since Leslie said that she's got some rules in place. Let's do, actually, since we're really talking that this is only going to affect things coming from Alma, let's limit. And I'm just, so yeah, okay. So here is an example of a record where we see a subject heading of undocumented immigrants, United States. That's not the authorized subject heading. The subject heading is, we can see in the source record, if we look at it, you can see a subject heading in this record, for example, illegal aliens. And I don't know if that's a good simple example, but in the actual display of the record, we don't see illegal aliens, we see undocumented immigrants. And that's the that's the work of the normalization rule. So if you were to do a search on undocumented immigrants, you would not match on this subject heading, because this subject heading is only a display, is only a artifact of display. It's not in the metadata for the record. So that's something to understand.
So Wade, when you click on that hyperlinked subject heading, it will perform a search on illegal aliens and show that in the search box in Primo, right?
Well, no, it will search for undocumented immigrants and not find anything, I believe.
No, I think Jennifer's, oh.
And you can see what it's searching here. It's searching exact undocumented immigrants.
Oh,
And I think we talked
interesting.
about that in the spring. I mean, yeah, that's kind of a subtle point, but good question, Jennifer. That is.
Yeah.
So it doesn't change the underlying mark record, but it does change the search in Primo to whatever is displayed there.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know, I all of this is a kludge. The right answer is for libraries to put pressure on. You know, if libraries are going to say we're going to use we want to use authorized subject headings from Library of Congress, except when we don't, that's kind of a challenging problem to solve, and that's what you're trying to do here. Yeah, it's not going to be perfect. And you know, whether it's worth, obviously I understand where the issue is coming from. I mean, you know, institutions have to decide, is it something that's coming up in our environment? Is it affecting our patrons? You know, all those questions to determine whether it's something that you want to put time towards, you know, weighing it against other things you've got to do and other things going on. But let's look at the mechanics of it a little bit. So it's pretty easy to do. I'm going to log into a sandbox just to play with it. If you go to, assuming you have Primo VE admin roles, if you go to Discovery in Alma, you don't even have to go into admin, just it's available in Discovery. You'll see under display configuration, right under configure views, manage display and local fields. So this is where you can customize how a field displays in Primo. And the way this is, the way this is done is you would, so there are, you know, there are tons of out of the box default display rules that are acting on, you know, all kinds of data being displayed in Primo, you know, namely all of these things that you display, and they're out of the box. They're typically grouped. They're typically grouped in sort of related fields. So, you know, for example, subject, there's a number of different mark fields that can be normalized into the subject display in Primo, and that is, you know, it depends on the type of record, it depends on what kind of data is there, it depends on, if this field is there, use this, if that field is there, use that. And you can see, it's kind of neat, you can see all of the kind of the logic built into how the subject is currently displayed. You start by adding a display field. You select the field to edit, and these are all the default out of the box ones. And what we're talking about is the subject area now. So so this is the default Mark 21 normalization rule for subject field for Primo VE. And if we edit that, we can see a lot of it, you know, all kinds of prior work and intelligence built into how this field is displayed, depending on what mark field exists, what the subfields are, what the indicators are. So there's a lot of stuff in here, and it looks kind of overwhelming. And it is a sort of and sort of not. Like, for example, the syntax is done in the so-called drools, DROOLS kind of language, and I forget what the acronym is or where it comes from, but it's basically a text manipulation language that manages display of data, and you can see how individual mark fields are treated within this rule, or within this set of normalization rules. And for example, if I have no idea what 654 is or what you would want to do with it, but like if for some reason 654 you don't want as part of your subject heading, you could just delete that out of this logic and save it, and that takes care of 654 will now not be included anywhere. You can easily restore back to the default out of the box rule like so, and then save again. So if you're doing something and you break it, or you decide you don't like what you did and you don't know how to get it back, then you can do that. The one consideration is that, I mean, there are a few places where you guys have done customizations, or customizations were done during implementation. So if you go in here and you see, oh, there's already a rule in here for subject, I'd recommend copying everything in here, pasting it into a text file and saving it, so you have what you were using before, just in case you do something you don't want to keep and you don't have a record of what was done in the past. So, and also, you can paste it in a notepad, it makes it easier to look at. So all that's just some basic info about this. The kind of the mechanics of actually addressing the thing we're currently talking about is, you can go to this page, and they've actually, where is it? They've actually got a nice this is, yeah, okay, yeah. So Primo VE. So here, and I'll copy this link directly in case you want to, maybe on this page, but for the Mark 600 and 650, here are SUNY's recommended normalization rules. So there's a couple of different options here. Well, for the 600, there's just one. For the 650, there's rules that display the 657, and I'm not sure what that indicator means. And there's another one for if you don't want the 657 indicator to appear, but to use these replacements, like illegal alien to undocumented immigrant, the ones listed here, you can copy this rule, and then in your custom rule for subject, find the 600 field, which is conveniently right at the top, and replace the 600 rule with the rule that kind of does the basic stuff, the basic display normalization, as well as the subject heading display mapping. And I think the syntax is fairly easy to follow. So if there were others that you wanted to add that were specific to your library or that also come up, that, you know, I'm sure this conversation is extending to other subject areas. You could, you know, you can see the syntax. It's just the old subject heading and new subject heading. So you could keep adding rows here and do a lot of subject heading replacements. And then save that. And then you've got that. Then you could go in, do a test. If you don't get, here's a good example of an error. This file cannot be saved to do a compilation error, unable to expand regex. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, I might have, did I? So this will, you can't save if there's a syntax error. So let's see. It was something about church. And so it didn't save my changes into the file, which is actually good. So if I paste those back in again, let's see. Oh, I think that didn't, that's good, because I didn't. Nope. Something about the church work. May not like a line break there. Yeah. That was probably. So somehow when I pasted the text from my clipboard, it got a line break in there. Nope. Another one, alien detention center. So there's might be a couple. Any others? It's a notepad. Oh, it doesn't like this. And I don't think these extras, just to clean it up a little bit. No. So 3, yeah, there were some line breaks in there that I think were breaking it. Let's see if that did it. Yeah, okay, so that's it. So that And this is a sandbox, so we can't actually search. There's no actually Primo instance attached to this, so I actually can't look at that. But then the other one is the 650 is the other one that gets addressed. And again, and does anybody have a comment on 657 versus not displaying that? I don't know what that is. For the purposes of and I'm not looking at, let's see, yeah, I guess I don't see any. So again, take out these, whatever line breaks I might have. And it's almost, you can see it's almost the same. It's almost the same rule as 650. I off the top of my head, I don't remember what 600 versus 650, but it seems to use all the same values.
600 is for personal names.
Oh, you were kind of breaking up there, Kirsty, but thanks for.
Subject.
So, I mean, I would just replace my existing 650 rule with the 650 rule that I wanted with the 657 or without 657. And there. And again, it's easy to go back to a default if you needed to or wanted to. Oh, thanks for that. The Kirsty just answered my question in chat. Amy says, can you explain again which items this would change the display for? It would change the display for any MARC record that exists in Alma. So that's basically any of your local physical, any of your records for your local physical collection and any records for electronic titles you have in Alma. So basically, if you can search for it in Alma, then and look at the record in Alma, whether it's a community zone record or a local record, then the Primo normalization rules apply. That's the easy way to think about it. And again, all of the CDI stuff, which pour out numbers, everything else, those do not get normalized. So those are not touched by these records.
This is Tammy. Could somebody, isn't it possible to put in local subject headings? And so could you set it up so instead of replacing one, you could add a preferred subject heading? You'd still have the one you don't like, but then you could also have one that you do like.
Yeah, you would need to, that's another path that's called creating local authority headings, managing those, adding them to your bibliographic records.
Could that be put in your normalization rules so that if it ran across like the illegal aliens, you could have it add?
I don't know, can anybody answer that question? I have not worked with local authorities.
I think so. I think you could do a norm rule that would say, if you see this phrase in a 650, then create a local mark field with this phrase. I think Skagit was talking about doing that at one point. Is Elena
Nice.
on the call?
Yeah. The nice thing about that is the local one that you created would then be searchable in Primo.
Right. Yeah, and if you
we-
do it as a local heading, then you don't have to worry about if you're doing any regular updates of OCLC records. You can set it up so that your local subject headings get protected. You just like you kind of have to balance it with the long-term management. I mean but long-term, I think it's probably a little bit easier to manage in the long term if you create your own subject heading or like create your local subject headings, but maybe not.
Yeah, Amy has a good point. That's a question of do you want searchability or remove offensive wording. So,
Right.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, and we have local subject headings, but we didn't create a normalization rule to change or add a 690 if there was a 650. We just have local subject headings in our 690s and we just made them searchable and within the subject area, I think. So that's all we did. What I did, and this is probably like the cataloging police are going to track me down, was I did create a normalization rule that actually went ahead and changed the offensive. And I only did it with, I think, illegal alien. That was the only one. But I just created one that changed the 650. But again, it's like, it's not official. It's just, I noticed that SUNY put a nice little tag saying that it was part of their subject heading project, and I didn't do anything like that. I just went and changed it. But the problem is then it doesn't change the 690 or the 650 for anything in the CDI. So I think I probably want to do both. I want to change the display because there's really nothing I can do to change stuff in the CDI unless I run a list and then run that normalization rule on those records every month or something. So yeah, I don't know. It seems like there isn't a perfect solution until we can get Library of Congress to just change the dang authorities.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest issue with all this I see is that the broad majority of content is in the CDI, not in MARC records. So that really limits the impact of these changes. That's the biggest issue I see. And also the duplication of work across, thousands of libraries in the US. If everybody decides to do this, it's kind of the easiest, the right solution is root cause, addressing the root cause, which is what do we as a culture or a community of libraries or whatever consider the authorized heading. I mean, Ellen brings up a point. I mentioned local authorities, and I think Ellen was saying, that you can just add text in a 650 field or a 600 field and just, make unauthorized subject headings that just, they'll be marked and you'll see them in Alma as, oh, this is an unauthorized heading. If you don't have authority record in Alma, what can happen is that, Alma does automatic authority checking across records. So if your unauthorized heading is in, and those of you who know more about this than I do, please speak up. But if your heading happens to be one of the headings that if almost configured to do authority checking against LC, and LC has like an alternate subject heading or something that, oh, we don't really call it this, we call it that. And if your unauthorized heading it happens to be one of those, then you might get flipped over to one of the authorized headings. But I don't know if that actually happens with these subject headings, because I don't know if like I don't know if the library, authority checking will switch something like undocumented immigrants to illegal aliens. I'm guessing it wouldn't, but so having the local authority in Alma that matches your local heading, so that you can use that local heading for search, then that the local authority will take precedence over the Library of Congress authority, since it's local. So and then just looking at the elements, right, and kind of where Tammy's thinking was going, the SUNY page does describe or mention normalization rules applied to physical bibliographic records, which is, I guess, something they've done, which is what we were just talking about, changing the actual MARC records to a local subject heading. And using bibliographic normalization rules to do that. And there are examples here. The Primo display rule is much lower level of effort than this will be. If you don't have somebody regularly engaged in kind of original cataloging and more active catalog record management, this is going to be more of a reach for you. If you've got somebody, who's elbows deep in managing bibliographic records within Alma, then this might be more, this is something that would be more approachable. It's kind of I don't have any real wisdom to add beyond that. I think I saw a question Lynn asked. Lynn asked a good question. How do libraries decide what subject headings to change, what to change them to, etc. And that's kind of an open-ended question. I don't know if there's any single answer. Like with this whole effort, this change the subject thing, I mean, there has been legislation that has actually proposed the subject heading changes that at least some working group or some steering group came up with. And so that's one way it happens. The other way is through less formal efforts, but maybe managed by a working group. At the SUNY Library Consortium, I'm sure they had a big committee or a working group of people from various institutions who, had a lot of meetings about what to do about this, what the end goal was, how to achieve it, all that stuff. And, so one way to do it is take advantage of those things that have those paths that have already been laid out by others, and to use them. I mean, what we're talking about doing is pretty ad hoc, and I think this gets this does something. I think, one question is, where has this come up in our institutions? And I believe it has come up. I believe there has been at least a couple of instances of people noticing these terms and asking about them, but that I can't say for certain. If anybody has any comment about that. or if, you know, if you were tuned into the conversation we had in the spring about this, if you know, if there was discussion at your library following that, or since, you know, and this, yeah, particularly in communities that are serving up, you know, diverse communities where you do have a lot of immigrants, this may be, you know, does become a thing. Another, I was thinking this morning, another approach to this, and it's even more of a Band-Aid, is just having a statement in, you know, linked directly within Primo, you know, about offensive subject headings, or some, you know, something proactively saying, here's, or it maybe not in Primo, but just have a policy where, you know, in some libraries publish their cataloging standards, what, you know, something about where they get the metadata, whatever. You could have just a policy page on, you know, while we disagree with some of the Library of Congress subject headings, and support their, you know, modification as evidenced in, you know, HR, you know, bill, whatever, the Library of Congress does provide a national standard for cataloging metadata, and it's a standard that we have historically or traditionally followed, and, you know, et cetera, something that, you know, so if somebody asks, so why does, you know, that's pretty rude, illegal aliens, where here, you know, here's a link, you can read about where that's coming from. Oh, thanks, Amy. Yeah, Ohio Link is another huge consortium. And did they talk? I don't know if they talk about mechanics here. I believe Ohio Link is on Alma these days. Oh, and then, yeah, of course, I think we looked at this in the spring, Orbis Cascade Alliance, and I think, well, that link is broken, but I think where the Orbis Cascade Alliance came down was recommending the use of Primo display normalization, but they weren't going to make a recommendation about handling a bibliographic record, since that's but it has a longer term impact and may be, you know, one of the things about doing the bibliographic records is you're really changing something. So it's an institutional consideration about, you know, what's your long-term management of your bib records, what does it mean for you down the road if you start including non-authorized subject headings in your records, all that. Where might that metadata live in the future, and what's the impact of changes you decide to make in it? The Primo display is more cut and dry. It's just, it's easy to implement. It doesn't have a permanent effect on anything. So. Yeah, Jennifer asked, you know, what are we doing about it? You know, that's a tough one, because we have such varying levels of cataloging operations across the institutions, and you know, levels of participation based on staffing. So I I don't have an answer for your question, Jennifer.
No, I didn't expect an answer, but it looks like Amy says the shared catalog idea has been dropped for the wayside by now, so it may not even be a consideration.
Yeah, and I mean, my mind goes back to the CDI versus local records issue, and what is the long-term future of the longer term, like 2 years, 5 years, what do you want to put effort in now towards the future, and how the library might look a few years from now. And it just, another interesting, let's see, how about highlight? Yeah, so if we search just the CDI, I'm in Highline and using a scope that's basically just CDI, the article scope, and we did. And actually, let's see. If I actually search for the subject, illegal immigrants, it's interesting that I would have expected more hits. I was expecting more hits. I was kind of curious because, of course, the CDI citations, don't tend to adhere to standards as much as more traditional MARC records. So I was wondering, are those terms even being used in the CDI, or would we see some so we got 46,000 for illegal immigrants in the CDI. Undocumented immigrants as a subject, we get 7,000. So there is some use of the unauthorized subject heading here, like in this example article. So it's probably the case that CDI citations are, go off script more than MARC records anyway. So you may, even though 7,000 to 46,000, it's still the offensive term still far outnumbers, but I don't know. So these so I'm just rambling now, but that's again, I guess the reason where that little thread was coming from is just thinking about what's happening long-term in libraries and what metadata people are actually using, and the growing and the bigger part of metadata, how is it being managed? I mean, we're not managing it. It's at the subject heading level. It's happening elsewhere, and what are those people doing about this? And it seems like, and maybe it's just lack of standards as much as actual conscious addressing of issues like this. But okay, so we get 112 for undocumented. Now I'm searching the library. So what was the first one? So 131 versus 112. So it's actually more the local records at Highline are more even in the distribution of undocumented versus illegal immigrants than the CDI scope, and that's interesting. And I don't know if that's because I I don't know why that is, but I'm just thinking out loud here and thinking about what's actually happening out in the world that's going to affect the library, beyond our kind of micro level management of metadata.
Wait, I'm confused because I thought when you did and subject is exact for the updated heading, it showed nothing in Pierce's catalog. So why is it showing things here?
I don't know. We can try Pierce again.
I think it's because because this is what confused me, because it was undocumented immigrants -- United States -- history exact. But if you do like just plain undocumented immigrants, just without anything else, stuff will show up. The other thing I wanted to point out is that if you do subject search for illegal immigrants, all the things that say that have been switched with the view do show up there too.
Yeah, so this is undocumented immigrants is exact. And was I doing exact or contains in Highline?
I think you were doing exact. Oh,
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, but Pierce has local titles with subject headings that in the MARC record contain undocumented immigrants, and I assume those are unauthorized, but yeah, and so that MARC record that we were just looking at uses this, if we looked at the source record, it actually contains undocumented immigrants.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, that's what's.
Oh, so so I'm searching subject heading and somehow the title is being included in this, it's a, oh, so I can't explain that. Is, somehow 245B being included in the subject normalization? I don't know. Oh, thanks, Kirsty. Are we? Oh gosh, it's already 11 o'clock. I'm sorry, guys. Well, that conversation probably brought up as many questions as it answered, but in terms of the basic mechanics, I'll add all those links in the meeting notes, and a corrected version of the 600 Primo VE normalization rule for those who want to stick that in there. If you recall, I had there were some syntax errors in my copy paste, so I can fix those and put those in the meeting notes. Or you may be able to just do that if you were following along. And then we can always continue this conversation on the list and future calls. And if it, and certainly this may, bring up a lot more questions and thoughts. So please do post your ideas and discussion about this on our Alma list so that we can continue. Discussing. All right. Well, thanks very much, everyone. I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording. Stop sharing. All right, we'll talk to you guys soon.